Hi, guys. I just want to say that Tom and I really have enjoyed doing these podcasts together. I hope that you've actually enjoyed it and, like myself, have actually learned things. This summer, on August 24th, we are going to do an amazing event right here at Under the Stars at Riverside in Oliver, British Columbia. We are going to do a live podcast. We're interviewing a couple of really interesting guests. We'd like to invite you to be there. I believe that you will not only enjoy it, but will be challenged and encouraged by it. So, August 24th, for more information, go to mscproject.com or to underthestars@riverside.ca. Save the date. Look forward to seeing you there.
Every generation is a secret society and has incommunicable enthusiasms, tastes, and interests, which are a mystery both to its predecessors and to posterity.
Who said that?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Mr. Director, maybe you should check that out also. Oh my, I came across this and I thought, what a statement to think about when we are going to discuss Freemasons and the Illuminati.
Oh, fantastic.
There is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. And what we've been talking about, big ideas here,
Yep.
great ideas, ideas that have shaped society. And this is something that has influenced not only religious society, but also non-religious society. Who are the Freemasons?
Yes.
What do they do? What do they believe? And there has been, you just go online
Yeah.
and you type that question, you'd be surprised the number of things you find there. Greg, who are the Freemasons?
Oh. Well, my understanding is that they originated, I want to say in the mid 1600s, and I could be off on my time on there, but it's out of England, and I think it was primarily southern England in particular, where they established themselves, and I think to this day their headquarters are still in England. And they have been a secret society that is primarily at the early levels was a male-dominated organization. They have a little secret ritual that they will typically go through. And my suspicion is to confirm that you're a male and not masquerading as a male. But that's the information that I have bumped into. They have different levels, so you can, you've got 33 levels of masonry and possibly more, depending on who you talk to. They have primarily, they are targeted for the business educated, strata of society. They have a number of different concepts that they propose. They will accept people from any religious background. One of the areas that they typically don't, or they minimize all Christian all leaders, gurus, Christians, and to basically the same level. So everybody comes in with their particular belief system, and not one has any more value than the other. And they hold everything is equality to a large degree from a religious background.
Okay, you've done a great job showing us the lay of the land.
Yes.
Let's get lost in this forest for a minute. you said that they are a secret society.
Yes.
Greg,
Well, quasi-secret society.
is there a difference between a secret society and a society with secrets?
There should be.
Because I think what has happened in our world is that we have mistaken a society with secrets as a secret society.
Yes.
I think Freemasons are an open society with secrets.
Okay, I can buy that. Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Let's use this other approach. The best approach, I would argue, if you want to learn or to know about any society, like when you're, as you know me, I love stories, eh?
Yes.
One thing we know about stories is that when a story reaches, let me rephrase, when a story about a certain community reaches another community before the people get there, misunderstandings usually come up. So, in an example, if people in the first world countries in the colonial era first hear stories about what Africans are before they actually meet them, then there is a misconception that they take to those interactions. When people in the world, in our part of the world right now, if all you hear are stories first about what native communities are like,
Yes.
then you build an image,
bias, yeah.
a bias about what a native person carries, how they carry themselves, how their everyday living looks like. And I think we have the same danger here. When a story about Freemasons, and we'll talk about the Illuminati afterwards,
Oh, good.
when stories about them have become more prominent than what they say about themselves, what do you think?
Yeah, that's actually really an intriguing idea that the story gets momentum and goes before them. The story has a lot of appeal, and it typically explains something that we as a society are uncomfortable about.
Yeah.
And that is where I think they get the most traction on.
Yeah, because you can build stories and tell whole sorts of lies, and I mean, okay, let me not say lies. You can build your biases into the story you tell about someone. Hence, I would argue, maybe you see it different, I would argue that the idea that Freemasons are a secret society is the result of storytelling. I don't think they are a secret society. I think they are a society with secrets.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Hollywood has done a great job at giving a lot of momentum to these societies.
I think Hollywood does because I mean they are in it for the money,
Yep.
primarily, and not so many people are actually interested in saying, okay, unless it's some documentary, I imagine someone would then say, you know what, I really want to find out, But where we stay in British Columbia, where we're broadcasting from, there are so many Mason holes
Yes.
everywhere. Like in most cities, you might just find a Mason hole. And the biggest and the oldest, I think, might be wrong, Mr. Director, you need to fact check me on that, is the Victoria Columbia Lodge number 1. Okay, that's the biggest. And lo and behold, they actually, on their website, Mr. Director, you'll need to put that on the screen. On their website, they have an interesting document, and I think it's a book that they've titled Freemasonry Explained.
So let me be clear. You use the word name Victoria.
Yes.
Now, there's several Victorias in the world. There's one here in British Columbia, one in Australia, and of course there's one back in England. What Victoria are you referring to? Where is this number 1 lodge?
British Columbia.
Wow, I knew we were famous for something.
It is the biggest Mason Hall in British Columbia.
In British Columbia.
Yes, it
But
is
not,
the
not,
biggest.
not in the world, though.
Not in the world.
Oh,
I don't think in the world. No, it is the center of Freemasonry.
In Canada.
In
British Columbia.
In British Columbia, I
Okay.
think. Yeah, someone might have to check which one is the biggest in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you find that, Mr. Director, make sure you let us know. So on their website, now, I want us to be fair to this thing, Greg,
Sure.
and really have a conversation that is based on what the operators of the system
Right.
say this is who we are.
Yep.
Because in the same way that I don't think any religious organization would say it is fair for someone outside of their organization to be
Define them.
defining them.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, there's that proverb, I guess we should call it that, that it is not right for the hunter to tell the life story of the hunted.
It's
You know,
true. Yeah.
like no,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work that way. But so you go to the website, you know, Victoria Columbia Lodge number 1. They have a booklet, and their book is called, wait for it, Freemasonry Explained.
Fantastic.
The world's oldest and best known fraternal organization.
Oh. Well, that's disappointing. I thought they'd use the word secret organization.
There we go. Yeah. No, they're saying no. What we are is a fraternity. We are an organization. Now, I guess, let me just highlight a few things here, and then we'll talk about them and see if they fall in line with. Listen to what they say. This is on the introduction of their book. This ebook, because it's online, was suggested because of all the misconceptions with respect to Freemasonry within the general public. So they,
I wanted to address these issues.
Yep. Okay, because you have so many people who are not Freemasons who are going out saying, oh, they are like this, they are like this. And listen to this part. The author says, I feel that we are misunderstood on a number of areas, and the television programs that use Freemasonry as the bad guy, in quotes, at every opportunity is typical. So, like you just pointed out, Hollywood has done a number on this.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, and that's much. Now, I find it interesting, Greg. You said that from what you know, Freemasonry dates back to what in England?
Yeah, I believe it's in the 1600s, and I was under the impression that the Illuminati was actually started prior to the Masonry. So I'm not. Don't quote me on
Yeah.
my dates, but
Yeah.
that's my rough
Yeah.
understanding.
So it's actually in the 1700s.
Oh, 17.
You're somewhere.
Yeah, I'm off by
somewhere there.
150 years.
Yeah. But when you go to their ebook, they actually date their existence. Now wait for this. Back to Solomon's temple.
Oh yes. I yeah.
Yeah. So they're saying in those days, in the days of the Old Testament, when there were Masons who were brought in to come and do the work.
Right.
Okay. And they're saying, well, we go back to those guys because now listen carefully. They say they associate. Okay, they associate with the everyday worker, and so Freemasonry is a way of celebrating workers. Firstly, who built the temple, and then they are going to pull this theme throughout their existence to say, hey, where there are workers, we celebrate them, and Masons. In particular, the idea of a Mason is going to shift over time from being the people who work with, the Masons, with stone or with brick, to workers, just everyday workers. Now, let me point out a few other things here. They say in their book, oh my goodness, and I'm summarizing here. In the 1300s, okay, Masonry was a traveling gig, okay? So unlike all the other trades,
Right.
you would typically work where you live,
Yeah.
okay? But Masonry, you had to travel for work. So all the other trades had guilds where the people stayed.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Much like the pipeliners today.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they thought to themselves, well, how do we address this? And so the idea of a Mason Hall was born. So that if you are a masonry and you have to go and work, 4 or 5 days journey away from where you stay, there is still a place where you can go and get help, because it was one of the most dangerous jobs in the ancient world. I mean, like the casualty count was just going up by the numbers with each day. Imagine building all these fancy structures that we still visit to go and see.
Yeah.
And if you got injured, there is no insurance, there is nothing. But in these halls, people would start paying a little subscription or something. Then if a registered Mason needs help,
Sure. There's some resources. Brilliant idea.
it is a brilliant idea. We still have that idea. In fact, we know that when organizations start, because this is now the forming of the organization, people then have to come up with, like who belongs, who doesn't, how do you get to belong, and so on and so on. And then that's when the rules is probably a very strong word, the restrictions and so on behind that identity came up. And this is information, by the way, they are willing to share.
Sure.
And I'm reading it here directly from their website. Yeah. And in that book they even share an old document of some of the things that they required of Masons back then. one more thing to bring to your attention, Greg. The era of large buildings came, Notre Dame in Paris. Think of all the cathedrals.
Yeah.
Okay, all of the fancy cathedrals. Some of those projects we know took hundreds of years to finish.
Yeah. Decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so having these mason halls became a very useful thing, because remember, most of them are built with stone.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
stone, brick, whatever it is.
Impressive what they've done.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
And so now you have 100 years of what's the word we use to job security.
Yes.
100 plus years, because it's
Yeah.
this one, then it's this one, then it's this
Yeah,
one, then it's
yeah.
this one, and all the time the mason halls begin to grow also. And everything that happens there begins to be more elaborate, because once money starts flowing in, things begin to change. The lodges grew, they had more facilities, they were able to address a whole lot of other things, and Freemasonry, basically, in short, and I'm probably doing a great injustice with my summary, was born. Now, they do not recognize themselves as a religious organization. I have come across a good number of people who argue that Freemasonry is anti-religion, anti-this. Now, I respect those arguments, but if we're going to argue for something, why not base it on what the people who you are calling out actually say about themselves?
Well, I like what you've shared, except their icon that they have on their particular doors and lodges with a pyramid that has this floating top to it has a remarkably close resemblance to the US dollar that has the pyramid with a floating top on it.
Yep.
So one could only assume that the lodge is somehow connected to the U.S. monetary system. It would be easy, close dots to draw the line on.
Yeah. I don't deny it. And yet, there's, oh my goodness, what is it called? It's actually a psychological, I forget the word, but where you, let me explain it in how it works. You walk into a dealership and you want to buy a new truck.
Yeah.
And then you see this truck and you're like, oh my goodness, this is the best truck ever. And I have absolutely never seen a truck with this color. I mean,
Yeah.
green. It's a brilliant idea. A green truck. I will be the only one
Yes.
on the streets with a green truck. and then
Yeah.
the car salesman or lady will say, okay, leave your documents with me. I will make sure I run your credit and all of that. And my friend, you come tomorrow and you get your car and you're all done. That very day on your journey home, you will start seeing green cars everywhere.
It's very upsetting.
Yeah.
I've been there, I've done that.
Yeah, you start seeing it everywhere. And so if someone says, oh, there is something mysterious about this, there is something unbecoming about this, guess what? You start seeing it everywhere. There is such a thing as coincidence, don't you think so?
Except that this is really a weird little icon, and you typically don't. It's not like a color. This is something very unique.
Imagine Greg has said, there there is something weird about trees that have 3 leaves on each branch. I mean, the truth is, you will think about it and you say, oh yeah, I've never seen something like that. But believe you me, just as soon as I say it, you will start seeing it. It ceases to be. Someone says, look at this, you will start seeing that very thing in so many other places.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's strange, it's weird, it looks, yeah, but so what?
Yeah. So what is a fair response on it? I'm not arguing the fact that yes, once you have something that is precious and important to you, then all of a sudden you see this all over the place. But I just think that you have to admit that there is at least a possibility that there is a connection between the two. And it may not be a very direct correlation, but you have to admit that there is the potential of that.
True.
Yeah.
True. They
And it's hard to, and I agree with you, it would be very difficult. And of course, being that it has a lot of secrets, it's very hard for a lay person, a non-member, to make any other conclusion than the fact that it's uniquely, it has a lot of unique qualities to it, both of these icons.
Yeah. So one of the things, Greg, maybe to excuse me, to take us to that place that you are discussing here, one of the things that happened in the era of great buildings, when masonry started, it started to attract not only people who were practicing masons,
Right.
it also started to attract people who were interested in architecture, and so now there was a grouping. There were those who were, my goodness, I forget the titles now. The Freemasons, and then there's another group. But then you have these people that are being brought together, and now Freemasonry is now attractive not only to those who are practicing the masonry, but to those who are also interested. It becomes the idea of a fraternity that we think of today. People who come together because of common shared goals, interests, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, and interestingly, Freemasonry started to pull in people from the wealthy classes. And when that happens, I mean, there's a whole study, I think, that needs to be done about what was it about Freemasonry that attracted this particular group of people. When in your group you have attracted those who are the lawmakers and decision makers, and the people in parliament, people in politics, people who shape society, when the thinkers and all of that are part of your fraternity, chances are that the ideas of the fraternity are going to govern how they engage with everyday living. Okay? In the same way, if we saw this in the United States when Donald Trump became the president, and without discussing his Christianity, he said that he wants America to be on Christian standards. and that influenced his Supreme Court nominations, that influenced his, like everything then influenced that because that's what he sees himself as. So are you going to see things that resemble Freemasonry in the world outside of the Freemasonry fraternity? Yes, because their members are in the outside world. But should that scare us? I don't think so, Greg.
So let me just run with this a little bit, and because
Yeah.
I like these conspiracy stuff.
Okay.
And yeah. So let's talk about the Freemasons a little bit. The Masons have an organization called the Shriners that are part of them, and I believe they have Job's daughter is a derivative of that. So you have some really interesting fronts. In fact, my father was part of the Shriners, and they do some really interesting. And the cool thing is that they have these little hats that have tassels on it.
Yeah.
And then they have on the parades and stuff, they drive little cars in circles. They're very cool. You gotta love them. And the Shriners have their little robes and stuff that they do, and so it's again, they do hospitals. They do some really great work. As any great conspiracy, there's always a front to it, and this is the front to the masonry. All the good things that they're doing, and they are a benign group of people that just love getting together, as you said.
Yeah, but Greg,
Yeah.
that is us thinking the worst of people before we have tangible evidence.
True.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying is that
Yeah.
this is a very typical thought pattern that I hear and see,
Yes,
and
yes.
it's one that is very easy to go down.
Yeah, and a lot of people when they discuss Freemasonry, that's the path they go down,
Yeah,
because that's the narrative, the issue of a story getting, before you get to know the people. I think that's where our problem is. Now, take for example, it may go back to their book, okay, the Freemasonry book, and where they are just explaining who they are. Okay, and they say if you join, because remember they're open, apply if you want to join.
yeah,
Okay, same way you do in a church.
yeah,
You join. It says their members must never, one of the rules, members must never discuss or advance his opinions on theological or political subjects in any lodge. Any lodge. So they don't go to the lodge to discuss politics. They don't go to the lodge to discuss theology. And yet, outside of, this is what they say about themselves. Outside of that, we say, oh, yeah, in those lodges, that's where political things are decided. And then they come out of there and they...
yeah.
I want to be very cautious. I would like to think the best of people before I have evidence that I cannot.
Sure. Yeah. And just to further that, my research into Masonry, they have a saying, and I think it's really an interesting saying, is that if you join the Mason organization, we can take a good man and make him better.
Yeah.
And that's an intriguing idea. They have a lot of little memory quotations that they encourage people to memorize, mantras that have value, and it helps in life and various other things. So you have these very cool little mantras that they use, and et cetera. So it sounds really, really good. And here's my point, and I'm going to just run with this. I think you're absolutely right. Is that we have to be very careful how much power we assign to this organization, because by us giving a contribution to them being able to manipulate, influence government, society, we have again stepped away and said, you know what, it unpowers the average person, because it's all something secretive. And it may not be perfect English when I'm saying that, but you get the point that I'm trying to say.
I hear you. Yep.
Yeah. And just to further that, I had a chance, good fortune, a number of years ago, to get acquainted with a gentleman that was a lobbyist at Washington, D.C. Quite successful. He had worked with a couple of organizations for many years. On his desk, he had pictures of him standing beside Nixon and a number of presidents and vice presidents. Quite influential gentleman, and he had quite a career of better part of 2 decades down there, is my understanding. And so I was interested in getting his opinion. I says, tell me about some of the conspiracy stuff that had been floating around, because I myself have been, maybe I'll talk about my own experience with this conspiracy stuff. And I says, do you see secret organizations that are making big influence? Because as a lobbyist, that's your job, is to trying to influence government. Well, he says, Greg, he says, I kind of wish I could point to something, but he says, as a lobbyist, I have seen how government works, and he said this was primarily on the U.S. government side. He says, my conclusion is that it's very easy for people to look at the results of government and say this must be something sinister, must be something behind the strings, pulling the strings, so to speak.
Yeah.
So my conclusion is that government is more incompetent than we think it is. And so what he's saying
I
is
agree
that,
with him on that, by the way.
The incompetence of government appears to be something sinister.
Yeah.
And he said, I wish I had half the influence as some of these other organizations are said to have had.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very insightful comment. Somebody that had seen the workings primarily of the U.S. government, had seen the frustrations that his lobbyist organization had, and of course they had offices and presence there and resources to try and influence government, and they were quite unsuccessful.
Yeah.
So, to follow what you're saying is that there is a danger that we have as a society to look at incompetence and assign it to the Freemasons.
Yes. Yeah. I also think, Greg, that there is a psychological probably, I think so, I can only blame it on our psychology, how we're made up, where our existence seems to make more sense when we have a villain.
Yes. Yeah.
And we spoke about this when we spoke about Satan, where some people lose their sense of identity when there is no villain. And I've come across academics who would even argue that if speaking of the U.S., if a president is going to be successful, he needs to have some war that he's involved in. And you look back, you're like, oh yeah, why? My goodness, Unfortunately, I think Freemasonry has been an easy target because they are a society with secrets and not a secret society.
And to counter that, I am told that a high percentage of the U.S. presidents have been members of the Freemason Society.
I've heard that claim also, and
I can't verify that, but just,
yeah, yeah. In the book, actually, I was telling you about, they do mention a number of Freemasons, and interestingly enough, what the approach they use. Now, this is fascinating, Greg. The approach you find outside, people who are not Freemasons will be, oh, see, it's a secret. So and so, we found out they are also part of them, and they are also part of them. See, that's the attitude we use to point them out. In the book, they are using a different attitude. They are saying, oh, just to show how open we are, how in the public we are. Oh, that president, he was a member. Oh, and that person, oh, he was a member also. And he was a member. See all the things they did? They are coming from it as a, oh, we're not in hiding. We're not some sinister group, lurking in the darkness, just waiting to pounce on you and your rights and everything. They are saying, we're a part of you. At least that's the sense I got when I engaged their material. And I realized that, oh, it is so possible that I've been cultured to always have an enemy. And someone has given me an enemy. And I've held on to that. And it has prevented me from actually knowing who people are and what they stand for. Like, Freemasonry, it was so fascinating in the book. Like, I invite people to just go and read that. Don't just take it from me. Just read it yourself. Where they are saying, oh, by the way, we do not accept people by religion. Like, oh, you're a Hindu. No. No.
No, they're open to every group.
Everyone is welcome. And then they say, because of that, we are one of the top supporters of religious freedom.
That's very commendable.
But that's a hard pill for some religious groups to accept, though. Because they are saying, no, we're actually pro-religion. In fact, the only condition that we ask of our members is to believe that there is a most high God or a most high power or what. Doesn't matter what name you want to attach to.
Yeah.
Just believe that that power exists. And that's all we ask
It's
for.
a minimal standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think let's attach something there to that also. During that time, let me see if I can get my dates correct here, Greg, because my goodness, when the fact checkers come after you. 1776 in Bavaria.
Yes. Oh, yeah. This is another fantastic organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Professor Adam, his last name Weishaupt.
Yep.
Okay. I'll spell it Weishaupt. He starts this organization because he is somewhat frustrated with the church, okay, by his own admission. This is a time where rationalism, human rights, religious freedom is having this huge grip in the world. And then he starts this group of the enlightened ones.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, whom we now refer to as
The Illuminati.
the Illuminati. You also have to add that voice that has
Yes.
mystery. The Illuminati.
I'll work on that.
and that society took off. It just grew. I think
and they did some really good things to begin with.
they did some really good things. And I understand that a number, if not Adam himself was a Freemason, a number of the members of the Illuminati were also Freemasons.
Wow.
Okay.
That's great.
So now you have these two organizations, and the organization grows in influence and in all of this. And within a period, if I remember well, of 9 years in Bavaria, since they were anti-church, the power of the church, they were questioning the power of the church amongst many other things. I'm doing a gross injustice by this summary here. The church and state came after them,
Yes.
confiscated all their records, and shut the whole thing down. And in 9 years, I think it was, the Illuminati in Bavaria was out of the picture. And then the stories began. Oh, they were really not shut down. They went underground.
Yes.
Oh, we know there are some now in the US. Oh, there are some now in England. Oh, there are some now where, and oh my goodness.
And in Rome too. They went into Rome.
And there are some now in Rome. How do you know? How? How do you know?
Because sincere people told you in quiet tones. They repeated the story
in quiet tones, and they began to be blamed for all the misfortunes of society. Say, oh, the very thing we're talking about. Say, oh, you see this great disaster? Well, there is a group. They operate in secret. And there's something about human beings that makes us so gullible and so attracted to that kind of stuff. I wish I could put my finger on it and say it's because of this. That's why I was so gullible. But I know I have seen considerable amount of research, and the conclusion on this is that, hey, we have no evidence that the Illuminati still exist. There's absolutely no. These are committed people who have gone searching. They're saying, you'll see there are a few people here and there who still talk about it, but as an organization, we think when they shut them down in Bavaria, that was it. And yet, the stories continue, Greg.
Particularly got resurrected back in the 60s. The Illuminati.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a couple editors at Playboy magazine, if I remember correctly, started sending letters to one another. And it was written up in Playboy magazine, and it started to get some traction. And shortly after, they were contributed to all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And again, this is my observation. I think the stories about the Illuminati became even more prominent than the Freemasons.
Yes. I mean, Jedediah Moss, I think that's his name, the famous preacher in the Americas. He was key. He always, if there was something, it's the Illuminati.
Yeah.
The Illuminati this, the Illuminati that. And it somehow seeped into Christianity. And today, by majority, a lot of Christians, once you say Illuminati, they think of some sinister group, something. But guys, I mean, we don't know. And as for the Freemasons, before you judge, how about you give them a platform to explain who they are? It's okay after their explanation, okay? And then you say, not my thing. That's fine.
But stories like Pizzagate are very, very intriguing.
They're very attractive.
Yeah. In fact, the same elements in the Pizzagate conspiracy, probably most people have heard about that. And they got the Clintons involved, and there is stuff that's happening with child abduction and child sexual abuse, etc. on it. These same elements have been used by Putin to justify some of his war activities against Ukraine, because he's going there to liberate these children that have been abducted, taken to, I think, the tunnels under Chernobyl. And again, if I remember hearing bits and pieces of the story that they want to frighten these children, take the adrenaline out of these adolescents, and then they take a derivative of that. It's an anti-aging thing. It's really convoluted, and it's like, how did they come up with this story?
Yeah.
But anyhow, what I'm trying to say is that now you have world leaders using a similar story elements to support
whatever
wars.
cause they want to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People have seen how susceptible we are to these things, and they use them.
So I agree, but I'm convinced myself that there is some kind of conspiracy happening in this world. I'm just saying, would you not agree that there's something that takes place? Now, I'm not saying it is the Illuminati. I'm not saying it's the Freemasons, but would you not argue that there is an element of that?
My my wife usually says at home, everyone has a conspiracy.
Oh yeah, they're so much fun to hear.
And if you don't have a conspiracy, that's a conspiracy. Is there a conspiracy?
So what I'm coming to is that and this is really the core of most conspiracies, at least in my opinion, anyhow, is that a magician is playing his card games, and it's a sleight of hand, and everybody is focused on this particular thing that he is showing us, but in the background he is doing something, and at the end of the day this thing turns into a rabbit or whatever it is that he's doing. That element of, and again, it all depends what group you're associating it with. And my hunch is that if you were going into Asia, there is uniquely conspiracy theories in the Asian communities, and probably in Africa there's conspiracy theories that are uniquely have African undertones to it.
I think, Greg, that let me see, how do I phrase this? I think people choose to believe these theories because it answers a whole lot of big questions they have. It is I think it is a lack of, first of all, answers, and maybe secondly, an inability to be comfortable with the unknown that makes us susceptible to these things that are not rooted in the everyday living. Okay? So yes, each and every society will have their own brand of conspiracy. Like I don't deny that. They will have their own beliefs on what's happening in the background, sleight of hand and so on. But the thing that bugs me about conspiracy theories is that they take a life of their own, and they begin to actually not be a theory. They begin to be told as reality, and then the information becomes, this is who these people are. they are this, they are that. It is highly possible, like how your friend said that
Incompetence.
there are some
Government, yeah.
seriously incompetent people out there who have been given very important jobs, and they are pretty bad at them.
But there's a saying, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. If somebody comes to your door and says, "I'm from the city," or "I'm from the government, I'm here to help you,"
Run.
they're probably lying. So that is a conspiracy theory.
It is a conspiracy theory, yeah.
It is.
Because I think there are people
probably a true one.
Yeah, there are people in government who are actually trying to do their best,
Sure.
but they are also trying to do it. I've often said to you, Greg, that it doesn't matter how sincere you are. When you work with human beings, it's going to be messy.
Yes.
It's just going to be messy. But what can we do as individuals? Like when I hear these stories are like I'm going to kind of like display my age now. They're like bubblegum. Yeah. Is bubblegum still a thing out there? I don't know. They're like bubblegum. First couple of chewing and it's just giving you all this juice, and then after that you're just chewing this empty thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of these stories are like that. I think we should, as a society, just be on guard, be on guard, protect against bubblegum stories.
And I want to just follow up on it, because these bubblegum stories can be quite destructive. And I got to give my own personal experience. I was one time, much younger than I am today, I was going to we were living in Kelowna at that time, and I was attending a high school in Kelowna. And where we were is kind of a rural area. Yeah. And ultimately, the science teacher lived up the road from us. And so for combination of circumstances, I would oftentimes catch a ride with him in the morning to school and back again. This is before I had my driver's license, but I just said how young I was. And this was an opportunity to get to know the teacher, and he was a science teacher, and so I enjoyed the sciences, and so we talked a lot about stuff. And finally, he shared with me at that time a cassette tape. I don't know if everybody even knows about this. They're in the museum right now, but it was a cassette tape that had some really interesting stories about the Illuminati and Club of Rome and a few of these other things, and had again religious overtones, and how they controlled all strings of the world, and we were all puppets, etc. on it. And as a young person, I was quite taken by this story. It was passed to me by a trusted source. A trusted source. I liked the guy. He was and I had no reason to believe that he would pass on something that he didn't believe in. Mm-hmm. So because I believed in him, I believed this story, and I listened to these tapes, and I said, man, why am I going to finishing off school? This is hard work. Yeah. The world's coming to an end, and yada, yada. I don't know what it's 1980 something. The world was going to, they had it all figured out, and how government and one thing after, and religion was tied into this. And the Illuminati was very active, involved with this, and it was a fascinating. I don't even remember the details.
Yeah,
but the basic storyline I remember. Much to my surprise, the world didn't end. It's like, wow. And then years later, I heard different conspiracy theories, and I was like, oh yeah, this is interesting. And what I've discovered over the years is that they recycle a lot of these old stories.
Yes.
It is surprisingly, and now I've heard similar stories that I heard back in the late 70s when I or 80s or whatever it was that I got that first introduction to the Illuminati and the Masonry on it.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that, and the point that you're coming to is, I think it can be very devastating to a person's psyche if you buy that story 100%, I'm not, and I say 100% because I think we have to be open to the possibility that there is secret organizations that have powerful people involved with it, and I don't doubt that exists. Does it exist in Freemasonry or Illuminati? It could be X, Y, Z. I am also convinced that the human greed is remarkably efficient at accomplishing a lot of things that have a sinister component to it.
Yeah.
So if you and I were in the media industry and controlled the high percentage of the media, we could quite easily skew the politics of a particular country
Very
or place.
true. Yeah.
So if we so happen to like a particular group or organization, then we could do that. Does that make it a secret organization? I don't know where in that qualifies or disqualifies how you define it, but I think human greed has the capacity to have networks
Yeah.
that are not always noble for humanity.
Yeah. And what tends to happen is that they do want just to keep those things in private because of
Sure.
how sinister they are. And I agree with you, Greg, on that. And I also want to maybe throw this into that statement that you just shared here, that just because a group has secrets doesn't make them a secret organization. They are just an organization with, our very governments are organizations
Sure.
with secrets.
Yep.
Okay. A lot of religious organizations have secrets. Things that they would rather not make public. A lot of groups, there are some private golf clubs that have secrets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So secretive that you don't even know where they are or how you become a member. There's just so many. I guess it's part of who we are to have organizations that have secrets. But the idea of a secret organization is a bit more sinister. It at least that's the idea, that's the language, that's the power of the language we're using right now. And before we attach that to any group, I think we have to be extra cautious and be very frank about the things we don't know.
That I agree. There is a fair amount of documentation about the Rothschild family and how they started off in the banking industry in Germany and ultimately grew worldwide organization, and how they have been very influential. They had a network within their family that was quite effective at being able to quasi-manipulate the countries that they were in and operating in. So is that a secret organization? Is the Rothschilds a smaller version of, or a bigger version? What I'm trying to say is that we, as a society, we've been able to demonstrate that they did have manipulative influence.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be aware that does exist.
Yes.
Are they the Illuminati? Are they Freemasons? Are some of them? I don't believe we have the capacity to recognize that. At least I don't.
Yeah.
But I think we should
at least appreciate that
that could exist.
That these events or groups do exist. based on the historical record.
Exactly. Yes.
We can say, okay, this group, based on now, here's maybe history can be of help to us here. When you have evidence, excuse me, when you can go back and say A, B, C, D, and they knew. For example, the tobacco industry. Now that's well documented now, that they actually knew that they were doing harm, but they put on a campaign to convince society that actually they are doing good. This is good for your health. Now, that
is a conspiracy.
Is a conspiracy. Why would you intentionally tell people you are doing good when you know very well you are doing harm? I think when you have such evidence that you can bring to the table, and then at that point you can just stick that label there. But the one that has been on our lips for so long now, the Freemasons and the Illuminati, bring the evidence to the table. I don't think people you find people online saying, oh, so and so 23rd or whatever degree Mason said, and then they quote that person, and then they say, oh yeah, but then the Bible says, so Freemasonry is against the Bible. But come on, are they speaking on behalf of Freemasonry, or are they just saying that outside of their identity as a Freemason, they don't think that A, B, C, D, E, F. We need to be careful how we interact with information, because my fear, Greg, is that how we interact with information shapes how we see other human beings. And that's dangerous. That's very dangerous. We live in a world right now because of the information that has gone out. You get to that security check at the airport when you're about to catch your flight. If I say to the security person there who's doing the search, if I say, Assalamu alaikum.
Don't say that.
I promise you, there is a high chance that they're just going to pay a bit more extra attention to my bag, my shoes, my belt, just everything. They might even pull me aside for a random search.
Yes. Yeah.
Information is deadly. It's very deadly. We need to be careful, especially when that information is involving people, because people are important. People are special.
And I think you're the direction you're pointing us to is really a valid one. For example, if I say the local mayor is a Mason or part of the Illuminati, or we assign a label to him as part of the bad guys, then my reaction with the mayor becomes tainted. I can't help but say, oh well, this guy is got stuff going on that I have to be really careful of, and I cannot accept him without a whole lot of reservation.
Yeah.
And my ability to have a meaningful relationship with a man becomes
diminished.
It's diminished.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's diminished. And the only way you can do it now is if you become humble enough to go to them and say, hey, I should not have said what I said about you, because I really didn't know you. I'm sorry. Are you still open for me to know you?
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think that is a very important point. I also am saying that human greed is very, very powerful.
Yes.
One of the most interesting stories, and I'm going to go on the limb here. about the Rockefeller organization and the group. They got very involved with oil and oil production. They had Imperial Oil, and I believe they had several other oil companies. They kept it for many years a secret between the different, or between their employees, that they actually owned other oil companies. Their point is that if you have competition, you know that you have to be efficient.
Yeah.
And they were very successful at keeping these oil companies very efficient because everybody thought they were the competition. But if you know that, hey, that guy down the road is
he owns it all.
Yeah. Why relax? And so there is value. They demonstrated value about keeping things a secret. And I think to some degree, I go back to this sinister idea is that this has been around for a while. And I think there is a sinister idea in this world that is propagated, and one that, by and large, the world has bought into.
Every bit of me wants to agree with you. And yet I still feel like there should be a word of caution in that also. In that it is true that we do see it in our everyday living. There are some things there, like if you ask, I live in a world of questions, as you know, if I start asking questions, then I have no other option but to think there is something happening behind the scenes. For example, we all say we love peace. Okay. Why are there still wars? Like, if everyone really loves peace, why is there still war? And if I ask that question, then I have to think, okay, then probably we don't all love peace, maybe. Okay, then people say, oh no, we all want war to end. Oh, why are we still manufacturing bullets? Because it seems, in my naive mind, it seems so simple. Okay, if we all agree as earth dwellers and say we are making a collective agreement, we are banning the manufacturing of bullets. Suddenly, but no, we don't. No, we don't. And therefore, when I ask the questions, I have to say there is something happening behind the scenes. But then I have to be careful, Greg, not to see my neighbor who works, for the company that makes bullets down the road from my place, to see my neighbor as a part of the problem.
I agree.
I'm concerned about the relationships with people. If my neighbor goes to the Mason Hall every other day, that shouldn't taint how I relate with them. I need to know them as a person first before I attach these things. In the same way, I think for each and every person, who's listening, if your neighbor is different from you, they are still human. Just because they speak a different language doesn't make them anything less. Just because they wear something different from you doesn't make them anything less. You still need to connect with the human side of them. And while I think you're right, Greg, something is happening behind the scenes, because I have all these questions that I can't find good answers to. I need to be very cautious because there are people involved.
So I agree with you. People are important. People are the most important commodity on this planet, and we need to treat each person with respect and reverence and love.
Yeah.
No matter what their organization they are, or ethnic background, or whatever it might be, religious, etc. on it. Underneath, we all have the same blood. What I am trying to say is that we should not be naive.
True, yeah.
And I think um, I have lived long enough, and I'm not as quite as gullible as I used to be.
Yeah.
So I am, when somebody comes to sell me a new product or a new service,
Yeah. You know bubblegum when you see it.
yeah, and if it's the greatest thing in the world, I am quite open to try stuff, but I'm do a lot more cautiously than I used to do it.
Mm.
So what I'm coming to is that I think we should be quote the Bible here.
Mm.
Proverbs makes a comment that we should be as wise as serpents and as gentle as doves. To me, that's just an interesting imagery.
Yeah.
But serpents are usually willing to strike. And what I'm trying to say is that they have the capacity to kill.
Mm.
So it says to be as wise as a serpent. You should know if this story has some validity to it, or if you should kill it, or move on.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I'm trying to say is that some of this stuff has the potential of being real, but I think we have to be very careful with the people that are delivering it. For example, my old teacher that delivered it to me.
Yeah.
Nice guy, sincere person. I'm a little bit puzzled at what, did he really know the ramifications? No, he bought the story.
Mm-hmm.
And he passed it on. So I'm saying is that don't be gullible, but treat people with respect and give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, I totally agree with that. So, Greg, you are walking out of here and oh, voila. There they are, an alien all the way from Jupiter.
That crazy alien. Yeah.
And he says to you, Greg, I see this big idea that came to your world as human beings, of this idea of secret societies, Illuminati, Freemasons, and the list goes on and on and on. Secret society, has that been that idea, has it been valuable? Has it done much good? What's your assessment of this idea? Go for it.
My assessment is that the Masons, Illuminati, these secret societies are probably have a limited life shelf to it. They're fun. They're, to use your words, bubblegum. Great story. Do I believe in conspiracy theories? Are a conspiracy? I do. I believe in a conspiracy. And the one that I believe in has nothing to do with, well, maybe it is a secret organization. But I think there is a secret, there is conspiracy. And the one that, for me, resonates, and this is, again, we're talking from the religious point of view, in the religious world. The one that I see that annoys me the most isn't the Masons, isn't the Illuminati, or Pizzagate, or any of these other wild stuff that come in. It is what I see is what, and I'm part of this, is that the religious world, and many of the religious, especially the Judeo-Christian world, has hoisted on society about how they say God is. And they say God is exacting, he's demanding. I run into people today that say, you know what? I don't want to go to a church or synagogue or anything else because I'm not good enough. And they have bought into a conspiracy about who God is. And they have been sold this conspiracy that God is out to get them. And the more I know about God, that is the greatest conspiracy that I've ever run into.
Mm.
He is not exacting. He's not demanding. He is the most loving God, the kindest God, and I assure you, the safest place in the whole universe is to be in the palm of his hand. He is a God that is interested, not just interested, he wants to be friends with me.
Yeah.
And so for me, do I believe in conspiracy theory? Yes, I see that all around me. Do I believe in secret organization? I believe in human greed. I believe that
Human greed is a thing.
it's a thing, and I believe that there is networks of possibly networks of very greedy, wealthy people that have we've got evidence to support that. And but to associate it with the Masons, I think that's unfair to the Masons. I think it's unfair to put it to the Illuminati.
Yeah.
They're good people in there, and they have lots of nice things that they encourage people to memorize and to live by.
And they serve the communities
yes,
they're in.
and they have very cool little hats.
Yeah.
So they're good.
If the alien came to me, I would come to think of it for a second here. I would first begin by pointing the alien to what happened in our world in the very couple of years back, COVID-19. Once the story became public information that this was a disease that Asian people brought to us, I saw a whole lot of unfortunate things happening. It was very unfortunate. You've lived next door to this Asian couple, and the next day, since you've heard about what's happening, they have become the worst things in society. The story hit the news and public consciousness that people would travel are the big problem, and you and I saw some of those things happening where someone would come with their vehicle and it has a plate showing that they are not from where we stay. And they faced a whole lot of unfair criticism and in some cases violence.
Yes.
When we didn't know why they were here, we didn't know where they were going, what has put them on the road to begin with. Conspiracy theories, secret societies, and all of that have blurred the complexity of human existence. And I would say to the alien, that was a great mistake. Like, I'm a firm believer in humanity. Do people do bad things? Yes, they do. I don't doubt that. I've lived long enough to see it. Okay. But I'm a firm believer in that most people see and appreciate our shared humanity. And if we all did that, we can build better communities. And so if religious organizations take the and say, okay, no, we are not just going to label, we're going to know people first. If Hollywood takes it on also and say, no, instead of just making these organizations the villains in our movies, we're going to do things differently. If we all just do things differently, it's going to make a world of a difference to someone who has found Freemasonry as a meaningful thing in their life.
Yeah.
I least I think so.
They've made a lot of contributions, hospitals and all sorts of great things. So yeah, I have friends that are Masons, and so blessings on them for the good that they bring to the community.
Yeah. Again, to our viewers, you know, we are appreciated. Just subscribe. Some of the conversations we have are not quite easy conversations, but they are conversations that need to be had.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't sit here and claim to have all the answers. But what we do is we contribute to the conversation. So maybe, you know what? Go in the comments, reach out to us, write us an email or something. Don't only subscribe, communicate with us, talk to us. And if you are listening to this and you are a Freemason,
Yeah.
hey, we want to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
Did we represent you accurately?
Yeah.
Okay. Correct us where we've gone wrong, because Greg and I will be the first to admit that we are not Freemasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get our numbers a little off.
And we get our numbers off. So if you're, just reach out, communicate, talk to us. We appreciate it, and we believe that we are in this world of ideas. We all grow together when ideas are shared. So reach out and communicate.
That's a very important point. We grow together when we share ideas, and that helps us when you share your thoughts and comments.
Yes.
And it pushes us in the direction of the interest. And there's so many things we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
but we should talk about areas that are interest to our audience. And I appreciate what you shared with us. And again, thank you for your support. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for subscribing.